Now we're going to be doing a variation of a fire effect in this one that I came up with, and I want to show you my image size dialog so you can see the size document I'm working with here. Because I'm going to be applying some effects that require measurements in pixels, and how big of an effect you do depends on the resolution of your file, or how big of a number you put in. So you can see mine is 125 dpi, so that'll be important to know when I'm applying my effects later. So just so you know, when you try this effect, depending on the resolution of your file, be aware. That's all I can say. So, going right into the effect, I'm going to go into the My Layers palette, create a new layer, and now go to the elliptical marquee tool over here. And right in the middle of the document, I'm going to hold down the Alt or Option key and the Shift key. Draw the selection out from the center. Not too big. Right about like that. Now, making sure we're on that empty layer, we're going to go to the Edit Stroke. And we want a really big stroke here. In fact, 50 pixels is exactly what I want. You remember my resolution of my file. If you're working with an even higher res file, this number might even be that much bigger. So, something to keep in mind. Color, keep it at white, and we're going to make sure it's set to center. And OK. Now, deselect that. Command D. So I've got this big circle. I'm going to go under Filter, go to Blur, Gaussian Blur, and give it a really good size blur. In fact, 25 is pretty good. You can see it's giving me a nice blurred effect there, but it's not completely gone. So hit OK. Now, I'm going to lock the transparency of this layer, because the next effect I'm going to apply, I only want it to apply to the pixels on the layer, not the entire layer itself. So I'm going to lock the transparency so those areas will stay clear. Then go under Filter to Render Clouds. And we get a nice, even cloud fill just inside that circle area. Now, go under Filter again. This time we're going to go to Artistic Plastic Wrap. Yes, you're probably asking yourself, what does this have to do with fire? Well, you're about to find out. So, Plastic Wrap, I can play with these settings. What I want to do is just kind of a subtle little reflecting action going on here, just so it has a little bit more variation. So keep the highlights probably around 15. Detail, I don't want too much detail. Keep it around 10. And the smoothness, will just keep that from being too rough altogether. So we'll hit OK. And we'll end up with an effect like this. Now, going to unlock that transparency. No longer need that to be locked on, because the next effect we're going to do, I'm actually going to go in this layer, I'm going to get my Move tool over here and move this down a little bit. Now, going to create the fire effect now. Go under Filter to Liquify. And you're going to get this gigantic window in the Liquify. It actually goes off screen here, but what we really need to know and what we're going to be using is all right here in View. So, the first thing we want to make sure we have the default tool selected, which is the Forward Warp tool, which literally just pushes pixels around. It does so based on these settings over here. Now I want my brush size to be roughly the width of my circle here. You can see if I put you can see the preview of the brush size is almost to the right width, so I'm just going to leave that alone. And the brush pressure, I want to keep it 100% because I really want it to push these away. Now, going right into the document, clicking and dragging up, and I'm just going to go around the circle and just kind of push these up. And you can see they kind of fade out to a point, which gives me the illusion of flames. Let's just work this around the circle here. I can actually go over areas I've already done just to make those flames a little bit bigger, just to enhance that effect a little bit more. Something like that. Go inside here, maybe a little bit there. But, alright, so now once I've got that done, I'll just hit OK. And it will take a second for it to render out, because it is a pretty intensive filter there. Now, there's our ring of fire. Well, now we need to give it some color. That layer active, I'm going to go to my Hue and Saturation, Command or Control U. Bring up this window, and we're going to click on Colorize. And I'm going to push the hue over just a little bit. We don't want it all red. We do want it to have kind of an orangish red to it. push the saturation way up so we can see we're getting a really cool fire color there. Now, it's not is really intense yet. We want to make sure we get the color right now. So, that looks pretty good. I'm going to hit OK. Now, I'm going to duplicate this layer and then change this layer's blending mode to color dodge, and you'll see what happens. Watch this. Really starts to look like some cool fire effect going on in there. Now, if I wanted to intensify that a little bit more, I could simply duplicate it again, and there we see we're getting a really cool looking fire effect. Now, I'm going to hold down my Shift key and select the bottom layer here so it selects all three. Bring up my free transform, Command or Control T. I'm just going to scale this down a little bit, move it up into position. And lastly, to top it off, got some text here I can just turn on and drop in there. The Ring of Fire. So there you have it. Ring of Fire. Now, if you want to know how I created this three-dimensional text, you can go to illustratortechniques.com, and there's a quick tutorial on how I did that. How I created it, made it look 3D, and then brought it into Photoshop to give it the Ring of Fire glow and everything like that. So, go and check it out, illustratortechniques.com. Well, thanks for visiting. We'll see you next time.